All right, welcome into another episode of the Ryan and Goodman podcast. He is Bob Ryan. I'm Jeff Goodman, and this is going to be exclusively a college edition of the Ryan and Goodman podcast with the Final Four, with the national championship in the books. And Bob, if you can't tell, I'm wearing a Baylor Bears sweatshirt here in honor of the best team in the country this year.
Yeah, well,
Baylor Bears.
Before I'll get to it. For example, or not for example, are you one of the people who believe that they were certainly a major favorite, a major contender last year? That we could be talking about two in a row in A, and B, absent the 17 days, absent the hiatus, might we be talking about them being the first team since 1976 to have run the table?
Absolutely. I mean, I listen. I remember the first time I saw this team, this kind of core group in person, was a year ago, November, in Myrtle Beach, and they beat Villanova. And I fell in love. It wasn't the exact same team. Obviously, Adam Flagler this year was new. You know, they had some new pieces, but the core was the same of Jared Butler, Maceo Teague, Mark Vital. And I remember telling Scott Drew after the game, I thought he had something special here. And that was early on. That was back, right after Thanksgiving. And I picked him to win it all this year. I picked him before the season. I picked him before the tournament. I just felt their guards were so dominant, Bob. And they had four of them. And they complement each other very well. They move the ball. They're very unselfish. Not that Gonzaga isn't. But I just felt like their guards as a group were better than Gonzaga's guards, and Jalen Suggs was never going to see anything like Davion Mitchell. He had never seen anything like that before. And that dude, listen, you love Marcus Smart. If you love Marcus Smart, you have to absolutely be in love with Davion Mitchell.
No, he gets your attention. There's no doubt. They got my attention by 9-0 when it was already over, as we learned in retrospect. The offensive rebounding, you mentioned Vital. Now, he's not going to play. Nobody's going to pay him to play basketball, right? Not in this country.
Probably not. He can't score. He can't score.
Once again, I'm going to say, you bring him to camp, because you bring him to camp to make everybody unhappy that you brought him to camp. If you know what I mean? That's what the guys like that have a role in our basketball society. And then he goes then he fulfills my motto, my mantra. There's a country for everybody.
Yeah.
There's a country for him. And if he wants to keep playing basketball, that'd be wonderful. It just is, but boy, is he fun and useful. And he's proved his worth, as he has done many times over in that game.
Yeah, it was, watching that game, even I was in a little bit of disbelief how dominant Baylor was. Again, I picked them to win. I thought they'd win. I just felt like the only thing I was worried about, honestly, was Drew Timme and whether Baylor's bigs could stop him. And man, did they stop him? Because he had never seen anything like that length and athleticism, whether it was Vital and a lot of really good weak side defense. Jonathan Chama, Chachua, Flo Thombo. Like they have three guys that they kept throwing at him. Yeah. And I think Timme at first was kind of like almost just shocked that he couldn't get anything easy. He ended up with it. He had an okay game, but not his typical game. And Baylor made every shot. But to me, the biggest thing, none of Gonzaga's guys could get by Baylor off the bounce. And that's something they've been able to do all year. Even Kispert in the WCC can get by guys. He put on the floor. Well, he couldn't do that against Baylor. And again, Jalen Suggs was taken out of the game early with those two fouls. But even when he was back in the game, he couldn't get by Baylor's guys. He couldn't get by him.
No, they were everything that, people like yourself that talked about. But they at 29-10, I'm going, oh my God! Because the first thing I thought of course, was Duke in 1990.
Yeah,
and we were on our way. We never did get to 30, but we certainly got to a dominant 20. They were, and at halftime, I'm sitting there thinking, well, it's conceivable. They got a pulse. They're coming. They got
it to 10. Like I thought, yeah.
And then they scored. They got it right up to 14. And I'm thinking, the Kemi Mutombo commercial. No, not today. No. And you're not winning. No, you're not winning. We tease you a little bit to let it get down to 10, but oh no, that's it. And,
yeah, it was
yeah.
never a game, Bob. I mean,
No.
a halftime was the only time when you were like, all right, maybe
Yeah.
if they come out of the gates and they make a couple threes and put some real game pressure on them. Instead, it went the other way, and it was a formality. I mean, it was weird in the arena. I said this about the UCLA Gonzaga game, one of the greatest games ever, right? One of the greatest games I've ever seen.
Yeah, yeah.
But what it was lacking, Bob, and why I wouldn't put it ahead of obviously Villanova, Carolina. Why I wouldn't put it ahead of, for me, Memphis, Kansas, when Chalmers hit the shot for Kansas. Why I wouldn't put it ahead of Luke May and Carolina beating Kentucky in the Elite Eight is because the atmosphere. The game itself measured up.
Yeah, yeah.
Just like I know people don't want to say it. People can't admit it, right? Like it's like taboo to say, well, because of COVID, things weren't the same in that arena. Well, there were only 8,200 people. So part of what makes a great game to me, watching it in person, is the crowd and the energy in the arena that wasn't there for the UCLA Gonzaga game, like I'm used to it being there for those other three games that I mentioned. So to me, while it was an all-timer, I don't think I'd put it in my top three because of frankly, because of that.
Well, this discussion, of course, is endless and irresolvable. One game that has not been mentioned enough in this discussion, when you consider the whole background of it and the sheer scope of what was going on, is Villanova Georgetown.
Yeah.
Because you have to understand, people, Georgetown was at that point entered that game with an aura of invincibility. They had just wiped out St. John's for the third time after St. John's had beaten them once to spoil their undefeated season. They gave them the back of the hand three times, including in the semifinal game. And Villanova had entered the tournament on the heels of getting beaten by 30 by Pitt in the Big East tournament. And they had how many more losses? They had double-digit losses.
10. Yeah, I think 10 losses.
I had seen them at BC BC came from behind and beat them on a Saturday afternoon. And there was nothing, anyway. And then, of course, they go out and they shoot 20 for 29. They shoot 9 for 10 in the second half. They do what they did in the last game, play without a clock. And you didn't even realize that they'd only taken 10 shots a second. It didn't have that feel of, they weren't holding the balls. It's hard to explain. You had to be there. This is one of those you had to be there or see at games, Okay, people don't remember that game's got to be in any great discussion. I still hold up. The best game I've ever seen is still Duke, Kentucky. And the big difference, and the difference tiebreaker, if it, let's say there had been a crowd on Saturday after, tiebreaker is that Duke was losing.
Right.
Tie game is one thing. It's like, there's a mountain of difference between tie, a basket that breaks a tie and a basket that puts you 100%. When you're trailing to win a game at the buzzer.
Yeah.
And so that's a difference there. I don't want to get, there's so much we could talk about, but the experience, I want your summation of what you just experienced covering this tournament in this fashion.
Yeah, I mean, it was so unique, Bob. I mean, listen, appreciative, grateful, all of it that we had a tournament. And I love the fact that it was Baylor Gonzaga in the title game, because it was different, right? Like in a different year, in a unique year, you had a completely unique matchup with two coaches that really liked each other and played pickleball, doubles pickleball often throughout the bubble. And you never would have thought that either of those teams, if you had said 15 years ago that they would have played for a national title game, we would have scoffed and laughed at it. So, what both have done is absolutely remarkable. The experience itself was interesting, Bob. I mean, 3 weeks I was there in Indianapolis, and it didn't have any feel as a city because you didn't have coaches coming in, number one. Normally, for me, my experience is generally like everywhere I walk, I'm talking to a coach. I'm talking to a fan, whatever. I'm going out at night with coaches. They have these kind of parties, whether it's Adidas running one, whether it's the Pump Brothers running, like there's just always something, a function going on into the wee hours. None of that, obviously, because no coaches showed up. There was nobody. And even fans, Bob, again, you had such a small number of fans that were allowed into these games. So, you had a small contingent of Gonzaga fans that flew out, of Baylor fans, maybe 1,000 or so. So there was no feel in downtown Indianapolis like there usually is. Indianapolis is a great city when it hosts a big time event. This was not a big time event. So it was like normal day in downtown Indianapolis, which meant honestly, no different. Like you could walk downtown Boston today. That's kind of what it looked like, even smaller, because downtown Indianapolis doesn't have nearly as much as Boston. They didn't have a lot of outdoor seating for dining. So it was hard for us to even find spots to eat at, and it's beautiful the last few days. But it was just, it was very different. So, the one benefit for me was I was able to catch up on all the coaching changes, all those things, the transfer list, because I wasn't going out late at night every night. I wasn't schmoozing with coaches. I was on the phone doing it a lot. And obviously I went to a ton of games. The benefit of it, Bob, the benefit was being able to go to 4 Sweet 16 games one day or the next, see every Sweet 16 game.
Yeah.
You obviously can't do that.
No,
you can, I've done it before where I've seen 2 in a day, flown to 2 or driven to 2 in a different spot the next day, but never been able to see every Sweet 16 game like I was able to do every Elite 8 game. So that part was fantastic. But again, I missed the atmosphere. And I think I also feel bad for Baylor. They didn't have that. And Scott Drew and I talked about it before the tournament started, Bob, of Scott was going to allow me to be embedded with them. He had fully signed off on it. He was like, if you can clear it by the NCAA, come in the bubble, you can do everything with us, everything. And I was going to do it with Baylor because I really felt like Baylor was going to win it all. And I ran it past David Warlock of the NCAA, and he said, no, we can't. Even if you were one of the 34 tier ones that Baylor allotted, which Scott Drew wasn't going to make me one of the 34. He's got other people that have been with that program all year. I wouldn't have asked him to do that anyway. But Warlock said, even if you were one of the 34, even if you aren't one of the, like, no matter what, we're not going to clear you for that in the bubble, which sucked because, again, Scott Drew, I guess what I'm getting at is he wanted the experience for these players also to have media. He felt like that is a part of the experience for these kids to be able to talk. And instead, it's us doing Zoom calls all year and throughout the NCAA tournament. It was all very different.
Yeah.
They didn't get the normal experience, but they did get a chance to win a national title. And that was obviously very important. And we had, every game except for one played in the NCAA tournament. VCU, the only team that was not able to participate, that was picked to play in the NCAA tournament. So it ran better than I thought. I'm glad we got through it. But there were certainly some teams that weren't exactly ecstatic at this season, namely the Ivy League. Those teams that didn't even get a chance to play.
Play at all. No,
right.
No, we did talk to Timme earlier in the season. Well, it's okay. It's the lid on. I want to, before we exit, the games, I thought one of the most interesting developments of this whole postseason was the chatter about the women. Yeah. And all right, it starts with was it a TikTok that the young lady posted?
Yeah, I don't remember how.
All right, but it started with that and all the ramifications of that. And I want to ask you what you think some of the ramifications would be. But here's an interesting thing I really find fascinating. The end of the UConn Baylor game, which was did she get fouled or didn't she get fouled by the two? And the whistle did not blow and the game ended and UConn won the game. Well, I was involved along with who knows how many other people, in endless Twitter chatter about the end of that game. And after a while, an hour into it, and you're going back and forth, they got fouled, no. And I say, my thing was, it was debatable that in real time, it was a tough call. Okay, people were posting pictures of a still photo. Okay, referees don't have a still photo, right. Okay. And okay. So, but I'm thinking, you know what? This is, what's interesting here? All we guys are arguing about this women's game, which was going on at the same time as a men's game.
Right. Oh yeah.
And I said, this is a milestone in a sense that has meant that these guys are arguing about this women's game. That's a milestone development.
Yeah, I feel like, Bob, once it gets to the Final Four, the casual fan cares about the women's tournament. The casual fan cares about the men's tournament when it starts. I feel like they care about the women's tournament when it gets to the Final Four. And again, the games were so good. They were so good in the Final Four, and my alma mater, Arizona, came up just short, which was sad because their coach was awesome. I mean, like the point guard was terrific. Like they had some fun personalities to them, and came up just short, but amazing accomplishment by Coach Barnes for Arizona. But yeah, listen, the whole weight room thing was just insane. I mean, it falls obviously on Mark Emmert's leadership, not on him specifically. Obviously, he probably had no idea, but more of, you have to have the right people in place where this never happens. And that's the problem with Mark Emmert. We say that so many times about Mark Emmert.
How much heat came down on Danny Gavitt in this regard? Should he?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if people hammered Dan Gavitt for this one, but again, it's hard because you just saw the video and the pictures, and you were like, oh my God. Like,
so what do you think of the ramifications? What's all said and done what the ramifications of it are going to be very long lasting, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think now, obviously, people are going to be very aware going forward of making sure there's equity among not just weight rooms.
Was there an issue about COVID testing too? It was not. There's some issue about not the same level of.
Is that right? I don't even know. Yeah, I didn't.
Testing. That's another thing that was shaken out.
Crazy.
I think it's going to be. I think there'll be long.
There should be. There should be. I mean, again, I just don't understand it at all. It makes no sense to me. But to me, we need new leadership for the NCAA. We need Mark Emmert gone, and we need to bring somebody in who knows what the hell they're doing. Yeah, I mean, this is completely overdue. But unfortunately, the presidents back Mark Emmert, who was a former president, and that's ultimately what it comes down to here. It's a good old boy network, and that's why Mark Emmert is still in power, even though he has no right to be in power. And something needs to change, should change, but it won't. But it won't, because again, it's just good old boys taking care of other good old boys.
No, I don't know. The scrutiny. You got congressional scrutiny going. There's
a lot. There's a lot right now.
All right, we've just had 1,500 wins retire. 1,500 plus wins have retired in the last week from the college basketball scene, and everybody's aware of Roy Williams and the career. And I don't know what you want to add to that. So Hubert Davis, what can you? Was this a foregone conclusion? Yeah,
kind of. I mean, they did their due diligence and reached out to Mark View's representatives and Tony Bennett and Jay Wright and Brad Stevens. But ultimately, like I said, none of those guys are going anywhere. Mark View's staying at Gonzaga, and Jay Wright's not leaving Villanova unless it's for a really good NBA job. And Brad Stevens isn't going back to college anytime soon unless there's no other option for him. And Tony Bennett was the one I thought, all right, maybe, but he's happy in Charlottesville. So they turned it down. And yeah, it was pretty much, they interviewed Wes Miller from UNC Greensboro, who I thought probably would have been a better hire. He's 38 years old. He played there. Hubert, I don't know Hubert. Here's what I know of Hubert. He was obviously a great player at Carolina, played in the league for a long, long time, was on game day for ESPN, worked at game day.
Yeah.
But a lot of people describe him, Bob, as an introvert. Very, very quiet. Here's my issue. Here's my worry is Carolina hasn't been great the last 2 years with Hubert on staff, with Roy Williams as the head coach. Are they going to be able to be great with Hubert as the head coach if he doesn't hire a great staff? And he's promoting Sean May, who was on that the championship team back in 2005 one. Yeah. So they're going to move him up one. They're probably going to hire King Rice, former Carolina player who's been
Yeah.
a head coach at Monmouth for the last 10 years. But the question is then, all right, are they just going to keep this in the family completely? And if they do, is it a strong enough staff? Like, the one thing I'll say, Bob, is it's Carolina. Like, my daughter could recruit to Carolina. Let's be honest. You know, it's not that hard. Carolina's the best, arguably the best job in the country. They're going to get good players. The only time they didn't get great players lately was when they were under that cloud, that academic fraud cloud.
Yeah.
That was the only time they couldn't get top 10 or 20 players. And they even got Frain's top 20 players then. So they're going to be fine, but fine isn't good enough for Carolina. They want to win national titles.
Oh, yeah.
And can Hubert Davis do that? That's the big question mark for me is, and maybe he can, I just, you know, I think Roy, the biggest reason Roy left, Bob, he was just frustrated. He was frustrated by today's kids. He was frustrated by the transfer portal. And that, you know, when I've talked to him over the years, one of the things he's always been very proud of is the fact that kids didn't transfer out of Carolina.
Let's leave this to the explanation he gave. I'm not the right man for the job. I was the right man in Kansas. I was the right man, and up to this point, I am no longer the right man for the job now. And we're free to interpret that. And I immediately said, you know, this transfer portal world is just, and he won't be the last one.
No, I think Kay will be gone next year. I really do. I believe, wouldn't shock me if Kay and Boeheim are a year away now, because with name, image, likeness coming in and the transfer portal going crazy, this, you know, I bet right now it's about 1,100 scholarship players.
That's almost it. When you first came up with that number, I mean, that's incomprehensible to me that, you know,
last year there were 900 total, and we are at April 7th. I mean, we're talking about, we still got a few that it's probably going to be double. I mean, it honestly might go from 900 to 1,800 this year. Now, again, you've got to include the fact that every kid had their year back. So now all those seniors are putting their name in the portal. There's probably 300 seniors in the portal. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit skewed because of that. But ultimately, Roy Williams left because, frankly, he was frustrated. He had lost some of that desire because of everything that has happened lately. So, you know, Hubert Davis was the easy pick. He had been there 9 years. And that was the biggest difference for me. Indiana fans are like, well, why didn't you kill the Hubert Davis pick like you killed the Mike Woodson one? And my biggest reason is, first of all, Hubert Davis is, I believe, 50 years old.
51, I think.
Yeah. Mike Woodson's 63. Hubert Davis has been in college coaching for the better part of the last decade as an assistant coach. Mike Woodson has spent 0 days as a college assistant coach or a head coach. The other thing is Carolina's Carolina. Indiana's not. It's a top 15, 20, 25 job right now in the country. Carolina's arguably one. You can make a case it's 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's certainly in the top 5. So Hubert Davis is going to be hard for him to screw it up. If Indiana doesn't hire the right staff, and they've started to put it together, they kept a guy named Kenya Hunter. They brought back Dane Fife, who's been at Michigan State, and they'll add one more, maybe Mike Lewis, who's a former Indiana player, who's at UCLA as an assistant. Solid, you know, pretty good staff. So maybe they have a shot. But, you know, the Mike Woodson one baffled me, Bob. The Hubert Davis one, again, I probably would have went with Wes Miller in that regard, but I don't hate it by any means.
All right, Oklahoma, Lon Kruger. That's just, first of all, reflection on Lon Kruger. 5 teams.
Yep. Unbelievable human being. Like the best human being you will meet in this business. Like I'm gonna miss Roy, but I'm gonna miss Lon more. I'll say that. Like Lon Kruger to me was like the salt of the earth human being. You'd find him 45 minutes before a game starts, Bob. He'd be sitting in the stands by himself, and fans would go up to him, and I'd go up to him, and he'd just be like, and I asked him about it last week, and he said, well, it was better than the alternative, being stuck in the locker room. You know, at least I'm out there and I'm talking to people, and what else am I doing at that point? You know, like everything's done. Lon Kruger, again, one of the best people I've ever met doing this. And college basketball is going to miss him. Great coach. Tried the NBA, a couple different stints.
Remember.
And, you know, did a good job in the NBA, but was more suited for college and really did a great job at UNLV, at Oklahoma.
Took Florida
Obviously,
to the Final Four.
yeah. I mean,
Beat a Boston College team to get there.
yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, many places, but people don't remember, that Lon Kruger was successful at years and years ago. But, did a great job in his latest stint at Oklahoma.
How good a job is that for how good a job is Oklahoma?
Yeah, Porter Moser took the job from Illinois, Chicago. You know why? It's part of the reason it's a great job is because they have one of the best ADs in the country in Joe Castiglione. He's awesome. So I think absolutely it's a job you see within the Big 12. It's not Kansas, but it's a football. It was perfect for Lon because he didn't want the attention. So it was perfect. He could be second fiddle. He didn't care. Obviously it's a football school, but they're also very passionate about basketball.
Oh, that rivalry must be one of the best rivalries in America too, right? With the Cowboys.
Yep, it is.
Yeah, no, that I think of Oklahoma in terms of basketball.
What do you think of? Who do you think of when you first think of Oklahoma?
Who?
Who? Come on.
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
for me, it's Wayman Tisdale.
Okay. All right. Wayman Tisdale.
I don't know. Just like the best guy. Talk about, again, Lon Kruger being a great guy. Wayman Tisdale was, like, I interviewed him when I was like 16 years old, Bob. Called him up when he came into Boston. And he spent like a half an hour on the phone with me. Then when we got off the phone, he's like, "Are you coming to the game tonight?" I'm 16. I'm like, no. And then I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, I am. My dad, I don't know, had tickets for that game. He's like, all right, after the game, I got some tennis shoes for you. I'm like, okay, sure. And I tell my dad, and my dad's like, come on, there's no way. No chance. So, you remember where you'd stand outside Causeway Street when the players would come out years and years ago, they'd come out of that exit. And sure enough, I was standing there with my dad. Wayman Tisdale comes out. I introduced him, or my dad probably introduced us. Who knows? And he pulls out right out of his bag, pulls out his sneakers, signs them, and gives them to me. And just a class guy. I met him several times later, including once in Norman, and just the late Wayman Tisdale, one of the best. So I think it's a good job. I think Porter Moser will be good. He's a different personality than Kruger. He's high energy. Did a phenomenal job the last 4 or 5 years at Loyola Chicago, and I think he'll keep that thing going.
That's good. All right.
What did you think of Mike Woodson? What did you think of that hire? Being a guy that, again, you follow the NBA, you follow college.
Well, I mean, I know there's a lot of fond remembrance of he doesn't get enough credit and outside of New York, but a job he did with the Knicks. And he's the last decent team they had until,
right.
It was a Mike Woodson team, didn't get enough credit. He was I think of him as a pro guy. And, as you said, there's this idea that just because he's a storied alum, right, if he doesn't find his Phil Martelli type, and that's not, it's got to have that's a must as far as I'm concerned. So I'm wishing well, but I don't know. It was almost a knee-jerk hire, I think, to have somebody in the family. Yeah,
I think it was, all right, we'll shoot for the stars, right? We'll try for Brad Stevens. Then we'll try for Chris Holtman. All right. And now we don't want to be embarrassed. It's like that with Patrick Ewing a little bit. Georgetown tried for some other guys. And then it's like, oh no, if it gets out there publicly, what do we look like? Instead of just saying, like, let's get the best guy. We don't care what it looks like. Nobody's going to care how many guys we missed on at the end of the day. We got to get the right guy. And I'm just not convinced that Mike Woodson is going to be the right guy in the long term here, but we'll see. What do you got going on now, Bob? What?
I'm doing a baseball book. That's one thing, but trying to, now that the college season's over, I can pay more attention than I have been paying to the Celtics. Yep. I'm well aware of the play of the up and down. They are maddeningly inconsistent for their fans, but they can't get. Of course, look, it's not exclusive to them. The league. Go down the list of teams. Find me a team that's been totally healthy
Right.
That hasn't had a COVID problem, hasn't had a major injury. They're hard to find. And so everyone has that excuse. But that's that, and it's baseball season too. We had this classic.
Did you go to a game? Did you go to a game?
I was supposed to go to opening day.
Didn't go.
It was postponed, and I couldn't. And they always built in Friday. The X off and I couldn't go Friday. I was doing Around the Horn. I couldn't go, so I haven't gone to a game yet. The next homestand, I'll definitely.
Was it postponed because it rained, Bob?
It was called the kind of weather. At 9 a.m, they decided it was going to be, even if it was going to be miserable. It was going to be damp. It was going to be 40s. When they played on Friday, game time temperature was 37 degrees.
Wow.
All right. This is what, it's New England, it's Northeast, it happens. I'll go to the next homestand and get involved, but
my daughter, who has not, all of a sudden the last couple of years has started to become into sports.
Yes.
Now, since I've been gone 3 weeks ago, now is last night I got home and she's talking about learning baseball now. So I will take her to a baseball game. I think she will be bored silly, and that'll be the last baseball game she ever wants to go to, but I will do it. Once she gets she's going to get vaccinated. Her first one soon.
I hope you get lucky, because the game has changed, and the games are too long and it's too much.
I love it. I still love it in person, Bob. But I love it in person on a 70-degree day. To me, again, I don't want to be sitting outside watching baseball when it's 50 degrees or 40 degrees. I have no desire. Whatsoever. I love going to the ballpark, and I miss covering baseball. But when it's that, Sunday afternoon, 75 degrees.
Oh yeah.
That's when it's
it shouldn't be an ordeal. They remember the old days of candlestick. They had the quad candlestick.
Yeah.
And I got there once, and it was a beautiful night. It was, I got lucky,
Did you?
Yeah, I got lucky. It was really nice. But no, it's and the games are, just check them out. I one of my morning rituals when I read the box scores is checking out time of game. And there haven't been too many games under 3 hours in baseball played thus far. Not too many. No, and
I think you and I think we need to go to a Celtics game.
Yeah, well,
right.
That's fine. That's fine.
Let's look. Let's look at the schedule, and I got my second shot today.
Yeah, I'm vaccinated.
So let's check out the schedule here later in the month, and I'm looking at it right now, and maybe we get go see a Phoenix in a few weeks and see like Devin Booker or something like that. They're on some.
Check it out. Right.
They're on the road. They're on the road. They're in the road a good amount, but we'll figure it out. And next week we'll get back to our NBA heavy. Now with the college season over and Baylor winning the national title, we can close the books on. I'm sure there'll be some more news, but for the most part on the college season.
I just thought that, I was disappointed. I was kidding with my friend Charlie Pierce. The one name that I never heard anyone reference in terms of Baylor and maybe the greatest player ever, the microwave.
Yeah.
Vinnie Johnson. Nobody never mentioned, he was, I just thought, hey, let's remember the microwave. But they don't have a whole great basketball legacy,
They do not. But I'll tell you what, they may be starting one right now. If they can keep this thing going, they might be starting one. So, all right, there you have it. Another edition of the Ryan and Goodman podcast in the books. We will see you next week. So make sure you listen to the Ryan and Goodman pod wherever you listen to your pods. And again, thanks for joining us.